ATVOD, what is your problem? You don't like the information that UK Column are putting out? So what is it that you don't like? Is it their expose of common purpose? Or the secret child courts? Or the illegal activity of the bailiffs? The illegal mortgage activity? The exposure of fracking? Well, somebody's got to do it because the mainstream certainly aren't. And the Crane report, what's the problem with the Crane report? Oh, biometrics. Biometrics and RFID. Well, once again, somebody's got to do it, and it might as well be us. And if you think that we are going to pay a fee to be regulated, you've definitely got another thing coming. Goodbye. ATVOD. Would you believe it?
It's unbelievable.
The Association Television and Video on Demand.
Never heard of them before.
Never heard of them at all. Absolutely, completely outrageous. And apparently the biggest problem they've got is that UK Column are producing television-like programs.
Well, isn't everything like a television on YouTube? That's the whole point, isn't it?
Well, you would think.
Television is so diverse. How can you not be like television if you're filming something? I don't understand it.
Well, this is the thing. What they're basically saying is that because the UK Column product looks so professional, it's amazing what you can do with smoke and mirrors, of course. But because it's got opening titles, a green screen backdrop that makes it look like a £1 million studio, and closing credits, then that's television-like.
I don't know what to say.
Well,
it does look a little bit like television, I suppose, but then I don't watch television really, so I wouldn't really know.
So the thing here is that basically what they've been doing, apparently, is for the last 5 months they've been trying to get the UK Column to sign up to their regulatory body. And of course, once you sign up, then you are effectively subjugating yourself to their regulatory control. The problem seems to be that there is no written or very limited regulatory control because they are making it up as they go along.
Yes, that doesn't surprise me at all. So if you sign up to this, then they can come and check you and check your content and regulate it. That's right.
Literally micro-manage the content. And obviously, if we look at their website right now, it seems that they've been targeting the porn industry, which might make some sense because one might want to protect young children. But the reality is that they can't effectively stop the porn because if it's coming in from an overseas server. Yeah. So it looks as though it's a money-making scheme.
Yes, and it's expensive, isn't it? I look at their charges.
It's absolutely outrageous. Yeah. So it's a money-making scheme, or this is a Trojan horse. They're using the porn industry as the Trojan horse to start regulating content that's put up on the web. And I guess that UK Column is doing such a good job.
Touched a nerve.
It's seriously touched a nerve. It's seriously rattling the cages, and somebody wants to see it regulated and quite probably eventually shut down. And the way in which they seem to work, Ofcom and probably ATVOD now as well, is they create a situation where their target effectively can't afford to keep fighting them and gives up and goes away because it hasn't got the money.
Well, if these people are going to do this, then I would have thought that they're subject to public accountability. So I had a look at this, and apparently ATVOD aren't subject to Freedom of Information Act, so they're not publicly accountable, even though they're an offshoot of Ofcom, which are part of the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. So essentially, Ofcom is funded by us, though I believe ATVOD isn't. But even if it's public funded privately, if they're carrying out a public function, then they should be subject to the Freedom of Information Act.
So let me try and understand this. It's a private, not-for-profit company that's an offshoot of Ofcom. It claims it's going to be self-funding, which, from the outrageous fees that it's looking to claw, it's pretty evident. It looks like somebody's going to have a very nice lifestyle on the back of this quango. But at the moment, they are not subject to freedom of information requests.
No, but apparently they have a transparency clause on their website. But I've sent them a freedom of information request anyway, asking about why they've tried to regulate the column and your channel. And I spoke to the Information Commissioner's office last week because they oversee the Freedom of Information Act. And the guy I spoke to there seemed to think that ATVOD should be subject to the Freedom of Information Act, and he said that the Department of Justice has a list of bodies which is listed under Schedule 1 of the Freedom of Information Act, which you can go and see on the internet, and it's a really extensive list of...
Where can you find this on the internet?
If you just type in the Freedom of Information Act, you'll go to the legislation.co.uk website, and it's under Schedule 1 there. You can click on it, you can see all the bodies that are either privately funded or publicly funded, but carrying out a public role that we can hold accountable. And ATVOD is not on that list, but apparently we can try and get it on that list. So they are going to be publicly accountable, and that's what I'd like to see. You know, if they're going to effectively regulate the internet, then we need to be able to ask them questions about it and why they're doing it. I think that's really important.
I think that's absolutely sound. So the critical element here, so something that people can do to try and get this censorship effectively shut down, ultimately, but initially they can apply or ask for it to be subject to FOI requests.
Department of Justice.
Department of Justice.
Yes, it has the list, and they can put it, they have the ability to put bodies on the list. So I need to email the ICO, Information Commissioner's Office. They're going to make some inquiries and have a look how we go about that process. But anybody can do that. Anybody can do it. So basically, you could get all your neighbours to go onto this website and submit a request for ATVOD to be subjected to FOI requests. Definitely.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good thing to kick off.
I think if anything good is going to come out of this, then this should be a good end result.
Well, but do you think it's appropriate, Pippa? I mean, obviously you've been looking at biometrics and RFID, you've been looking at the tracking of people and the agenda that we've been talking about on that television-like show that I was putting out on UK Column Channel, and I mean, you've seen how these insidious agendas start off in apparent innocence, but then of course it wraps the tentacles around, and before you know it, you're being swallowed whole.
It's almost too late, but the one thing that stops it is people. That's just as simple as it gets. If we know about this, then we can do something about it. That's just really as simple as it is.
So in many respects, perhaps in some respects, what's happened with the UK column is actually a blessing, because I think pretty much probably a couple of weeks ago, very few people had heard of ATVOD.
That's right, but they'll have heard of it now, and I think ATVOD had quite a few telephone calls last week. Certainly had one from me that went to answer phone, and they've not rung me back, so I must be on a list somewhere to ring back. I'll probably be on a list anyway.
Well, yeah, the Met Police list probably.
Yeah.
But the ATVOD apparently was so inundated with phone calls from, I think, Wednesday of last week, that they stopped answering the phones and just put it to answer phone. So this is a public body that is demanding money, and I mean with menaces. I mean absolutely with menaces. I mean when you basically get a letter that says you either regulate with us or we're going to pursue a legal challenge, and you're facing a fine of up to £250,000. And of course what they absolutely rely on is people just capitulating and saying, oh my god, where do I sign?
No, they need to be held publicly accountable, definitely. Have they taken anybody to court with this? Is there any sort of case law?
Yeah, there has been some cases. In fact, I mean, if you look at the ATVOD website, they are literally making it up as they go along, because they've basically been given a fairly open sort of term of reference. You know, cover everything that Ofcom doesn't want to get involved in, and maybe even some things that they do, and but write your own rules. And so where there have been some challenges, of course, it's set the legal precedent. And primarily they've been effectively targeting the porn industry, because obviously that's an easy target, because most of these porn channels, I'm told, do actually need payment. So the Black's Law legal definition of on demand is with payment. And so, of course, if you're on a porn channel, then I guess the likelihood is that you've probably got to pay for it. I don't know. Do you know? No, I don't know. So you've got to pay for it. But UK Column and most of the alternative media, you don't actually have to pay for directly. I mean, UK Column, I think, asks people to subscribe if they want to participate on the chat box. But the material that is put out on UK Column is freely available.
Yeah, I understood that was for the paper, just to cover the cost of paper. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I mean,
well, but you get that as well. Yeah, exactly. You get the UK Column paper. Yeah.
Very good value for money. But yeah, no, it's the government does make it up as they go along. I mean, they really do, and I've had experience of that with the biometrics. They have no clue. I mean, they primarily took a lot of their source material on the subject from my website, because I was looking at my stat counter and they were hitting it every day. So yeah, they do make it up as they go along, definitely. So
effectively they were using you as their unpaid researcher.
Yeah.
And then using that as the source material to effectively write their lack of regulation.
There was some non-statutory regulations that came out in 2007 after a lot of pressure from parents and privacy organisations, and yeah, my website got hit an awful lot by the Department of Education running up to those regulations being published. And then I sent the Department of Education a Freedom of Information request to ask what sources they'd used to write these regulations, and they had not used a single source. They had not gone to any academia, any developers, industry. They'd never seen hardware or software, and literally made it up, probably from the information that was on my website.
So this seems to be a sort of fairly common trait within government. So after having signed the Treaty of Lisbon, the UK is now subjected to some 112,000 pieces of EU legislation. The EU has actually created more legislation since 1957 than the US of A has since it was established in the 18th century. And of course it's all being churned out by civil servants. And now what's happening in the UK is they are simply rubber stamping this EU legislation and then writing UK legislation or adapting UK legislation to take this into account. And it's not going through Parliament in any way, shape or form, so we're becoming a total bureaucracy. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if, when we speak to any politician, they've never heard of ATVOD.
Quite possibly. I'd never heard of it before, and I had no idea it existed. But now we all know it does, so I think we should all do something about it.
Absolutely, and you have demonstrated what one person can do, and I know there's there's others that have come forward now, but you were the prime mover on the biometrics case some 9 years ago, and you stayed on that case, and I know there's some others that have come with you, and in fact I put out a newsletter last night that had an article written by Julie Beale, and Julie of course has also been working in similar areas of research to yourself, and Julie had done some research in ATVOD, and I felt that her contribution was so important that I put that out in a newsletter yesterday. But she's actually going to be coming on a future edition of I don't know, maybe it'll be not very television-like or something, but we're going to have a discussion anyway about some of the work that she's been doing on the Internet of Things. But meanwhile, now that we've got this opportunity to raise awareness of ATVOD, what would you encourage people to do? I mean, first of all, obviously they should go to their website, which, if I remember correctly, is www.atvod.co.uk.
Go to ATVOD, ring them up, send them an email, send the Information Commissioner's Office an email, start to put pressure on the Department of Justice to get ATVOD on the Freedom of Information list that's listed on Schedule 1 of the Act, and play the long game, because they play the long game. They expect you to go away. So if you don't get a reply from anybody, keep emailing, keep ringing, because it is such a long game. They just think you're going to be disinterested and go away. I certainly got that impression when I was dealing with government in schools. The Information Commissioner's Office is a little bit different. I do find that they're fairly good, want to help, but like any body that's there to regulate other bodies, they're underfunded and overworked and understaffed, I feel. But use them because they're good. But
so we need to make sure that they're even more underfunded, overworked and understaffed, basically, by literally demanding that they respond to these questions and write individually. I mean, that's the thing as well, because if you write on a sort of mass copied email, then they just send a mass response. So,
That's right.
But if you write individually, and in fact a handwritten letter is actually better than an email, isn't it? Because they, I think, are required to respond to the handwritten letter on an individual basis.
Well, I think more than anything, if you can physically pick something up and somebody's taken the time, it has more effect on a human than it does an email.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I send emails, but handwritten letters, great, absolutely great, I think, as well, because you have to make a physical effort to screw it up and put it in the bin if you're not going to deal with it. Whereas an email, you can just click delete or move it into another folder.
And the ATVOD offices are in a very appropriately named road. I have to be very careful how I say it. They are based in Sheet Street.
Oh,
That's
wow.
Sheet.
S-H-E-E-T.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Oh, right,
Sheet
okay,
Street
okay.
in Windsor, in Berkshire. So
nice.
perhaps anybody who is in the area, go pay them a visit. And I'm not too sure how close they are, but I think somebody else has a residence in Windsor, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I think so, yes.
Yeah?
Who would that be?
Oh, somebody who is suffering some pretty serious austerity right now. She's just forked out a bunch of money for a helicopter for one of her sons.
Ah, yes.
But there's plenty of... She's got a big garden in
yes,
Windsor.
She does, and she has parties in it, I believe.
Yeah, so I think that, maybe at some not too distant future date, we could perhaps convene a party in the vicinity of Sheet Street, and maybe even a camp.
Yes.
Maybe even, it's a pretty nice part of the world there on the River Thames.
Have to have a look on the streets, see if there's room on the verges, maybe
on the verges.
Yes.
Yeah, and set up.
That's been successfully done before, hasn't it?
It has. Yeah, no, the
precedent.
The Verge Camp, yes, it's got good precedents, and it certainly gets attention.
Yeah.
Because what's interesting is that there's a camp not very far away from where we're speaking right now.
That's true.
And East Riding Council have shut the road.
Yes.
And
which actually makes it safer for the camp, because the cars aren't whizzing past at 60 miles an hour.
It does, yeah, that's
Very
true. It makes it's actually quite a pleasant environment. It's Crawberry Hill. If anybody happens to be up there, it's a very pleasant campsite right now. But of course, the reason they closed the road is so that the local population who use that road as a bit of a rat run don't see what's going on there and don't get too much curiosity. So I think a camp in Windsor, in Sheet Street, or close to Sheet Street, might get a bit of attention. Do
you think they might shut the road?
They might. They might. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Very interesting. So, gosh, this is a bit of a conspiracy potentially going on here.
No, we're just having a conversation. Just general conversation, chit-chat.
Yeah, that's true.
Just no interview.
Just a bit of discussion. Yeah, because this is definitely not very television-like.
No,
I mean, it's a green screen, but it's a natural green screen. It makes a change from being sweltering at 30 degrees plus in the studio.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I have to say, Pippa, thank you so much for letting me come down to your house today and have a cup of coffee. It's nice to get out of the caravan.
Very welcome.
From Crawberry Hill.
Have a coffee with you.
Yeah, and well, I think we need to plan a trip to Windsor, don't we?
That would be good. Yeah. That would be really good. I'm just thinking when summer's always a good time.
Summer, after on school holidays, maybe we'll get a bit of correspondence going with ATVOD, case the joint, and look for the appropriate campsite there, and then just because I fancy Windsor for a few days at the very least.
Nice part of the country.
Very nice part of the country. Now, in addition, obviously, there's a lot of television-like programs that ATVOD don't like being produced by UK Column, but the reality is they've been produced. So what do you think? Do you think it would be a good idea that once we get those programs up on a channel somewhere, on a YouTube channel, that we should encourage people to download them and repost them, mirror them?
I think that would be a grand idea.
It would, wouldn't it? So
Yeah.
anything that is produced by UK Column, whether it's Humanity versus Insanity, which some people know as the Crane Report, or Fracking Nightmare, or Doom Watch, or 21st Century Wire with Patrick Henningsen, or Clive de Carle's Natural Health Show. Oh, we got the black helicopters. My gosh.
I think if ATVOD have got a job to do, then we should absolutely make sure that they have a job to do, and you know, get them to regulate all the sites that have the UK Column, Humanity versus Insanity, Doom Report, because they obviously feel strongly enough, so let's give them something to do. Let them work for their money, I say.
Exactly, and then let's see how they deal with material that is placed on servers based in Iceland,
Oh, right,
which
yeah.
of course has probably the most liberal freedom of the web there or elsewhere. So let's just spread it around the world.
Definitely. I had to host my video about RFID in West Cheshire College in the States because I got chased off YouTube 3 times, I think, and Vimeo once, and some kind guy in the States said, I'll host it for you, so now it's up there. So,
But who chased you off in the UK?
The college.
The college?
Yeah, hounded me.
Hounded you under UK copyright law?
Yeah.
But then once you posted it offshore,
Yeah.
once you posted it on a US server, it was outside of UK copyright law.
Yes.
Wow, so this is interesting, isn't it? Because there's already legislation that these bodies can use, like copyright, like libel, slander, various aspects that they could take through the courts. But ATVOD are trying to really be a catch-all, aren't they?
Well, if they are going to try and do that, let's make them accountable, that's what I say.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
I absolutely concur. So, well, let's see what happens. I think the next few weeks could be very, very interesting. And meanwhile, I think, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wing a few emails out and encourage people that once I've managed to re-upload all the past episodes of Humanity vs Insanity and Fracking Nightmare, I am literally going to encourage people to download them and put them up on as many different channels as possible. Let's get it out there, and let's say to ATVOD, adios, amigo.
Definitely.
Indeed. So, hey, great to talk to you anyway.
Yeah, no, it's been lovely, yeah. Drinking my, this is iodine.
Iodine? Right.
Not that I'm self-medicating or anything, but...
No, goodness me.
Oh! What's that? It's not camera.
Camera?
No camera here.
A camera? No camera. No, because this isn't.
Camera anywhere.
This isn't studio-like.
No, not at all. No.
No, and
it could be considered on location.
On location, it could be. But if perhaps there was a camera,
Long shot, really.
it's a bit of a long shot. But what might come up next is the contact information of ATVOD and their telephone number and their address. I mean, if there was a
Possibly it's
camera,
bit of a
then
long
I
shot
might
though,
just add
isn't
that.
it?
But it is a bit of a long shot.
Yeah.